And welcome into the Friday edition. Robby and Rexrode, 1025, 1063 The Game, brought to you by First Horizon, Big Bank Muscle, Small Bank Hustle. Visit firsthorizon.com/get it all. We are live from our Busy Bee Plumbing, Heating, and Air Conditioning Game Nashville studios, home with a $99 yearly Beehive membership, where the buzz is always about great service. Robbie Stanley here with you. Joe Rexrode will be along shortly. Nick Keyser with us today on the program as well. Nicholas, good morning. How are you?
Hey, good morning. Doing good. Did you get enough sleep, Robbie, after last night's game?
No, I did not.
Nah,
But
me too. It's
I'm
okay.
hoping I'm hoping Sunday to get some of that sleep. But quite frankly, I think this is going to be a real, like, people listening and be like, oh yeah, good for you, Bob. I think I've worked now 20 consecutive days in a row between
Really?
this job and the NHL job. So, and
Look at you.
Predators Radio. So yeah, man.
Yeah, man.
And people
Look
are
at
like,
you.
well, yeah, no, yeah. People will be like, yeah, way to go, Robbie. You've talked about sports in some form or fashion for 20 consecutive days. Way to go, Bub.
Shoo. I mean, look, you deserve a good old round of golf, you know?
That I agree with. And I think we're starting to get to the other side of the weather here. I think. I'm sure we'll have another like random snap here in like 2 weeks where it's 25 degrees outside, but it's March, man. I think
Yeah,
we're getting to the other side of this thing. It's going to be in the 70s
I
next
know.
week.
I would love to go to the driving range, honestly. My wife will bring it up every now and then. I don't know if Heather likes to go and do that, but we'll see. Maybe that's another little activity we can add to our itinerary this spring and summertime. I don't know, but
Are you a golfer?
I mean, look, I haven't talked about it too much with you, but I mean, yeah, I mean, I enjoy it enough to where I could go play around. I'm a
Okay.
real I'm a really good driver. I'm not good. My short game is absolutely terrible.
Okay.
But, yeah, I mean, there was one time I hit into the back of a group when I was about 14 years old, and my grandfather was like, "I'm so sorry that he did that." So,
Yeah, it happens.
yes.
It'll be all right.
Exactly. So, but anyway, I guess Joe Rexrode's lacking this morning, Robbie.
We'll see what happens. He's having some technical issues that he's working through. We'll see if he can get to the bottom of that. I know Rexrode and technical issues is a big shocker to a lot of people. So we'll see what happens on that front. In the meantime, we do have a lot to get into on the program today. We will be joined by Stilly at 7 o'clock. We'll get into what I'm sure has been a week of mourning for him on the Sam Darnold front after PK's report that the Titans may not be interested in him the other day. So we'll get into the Titans NFL free agency, which is right around the corner. And also today's trade deadline day in the NHL. We got a lot to get into on that front as well. Teron Davenport will be with us at 8 o'clock to get into all things Tennessee Titans as well. But let's start there. So the Preds get another win last night. They went 5-3 against the Seattle Kraken. And that's now 2 games in a row that they've won, 2 games in a row where they've scored some goals and look pretty good offensively. So that's nice. A nice change of pace here. But the most important day of the week in the National Hockey League is today, where NHL trade deadline day comes. Now, there have been a lot of moves made around the league already. The Tampa Bay Lightning have been very busy. Predators have already made 2 separate moves in the past week involving 3 guys, with Nyquist being gone now, Novak and Shen being traded out as well. So the question is, what could be coming today? Is there any more that Barry Trotz wants to get done? Is there any more that Barry Trotz looks at and says, you know what? I still feel like I need to shake this thing up a little bit more heading into the offseason, create a little bit more cap space, whether that's a Michael McCarron, who, by the way, scored a goal last night. Now, Michael McCarron doesn't save you a whole lot on the cap space front. I think it's $900,000 next year. But could he be in play? Could Colton Sissons, who's got one more year left on his contract after this one, could he be in play? Is somebody that we're not thinking of potentially on the block? And then, as Elliot Friedman pointed out yesterday when he was on with DVD, you never know what to expect from Barry Trotz. Could he go the other way and be aggressive and pursue somebody today who he feels like can be part of the answer next season? All those things worth keeping in mind today on NHL trade deadline days. We welcome in Joe Rexrode to the program. Rexrode, good morning. How are you?
Yeah, this is a real problem. This is obviously time to stop using this damn computer. Very, very sad, but it's my fault for having a MacBook for I don't know how long has it been now.
Half
Gee,
decade.
3 years. and being too afraid to make the transition. This computer is like my Commodore 64 in 1987 right now in terms of how well it's running.
I'm just glad you got on, man. I was worried about it for a second, but you made it. You powered through.
Well, yeah, we'll see how it goes.
We will. So NHL trading deadline day, I just kind of set the table of what's at stake today. You've already made 3 moves. You made some moves earlier this year. You got some high-priced, big contract guys that I don't think are going anywhere today. Frank Saravalli and others put it out there yesterday, Joe, that apparently the Devils are very interested in Ryan O'Reilly. Now, it's one thing to be interested in Ryan O'Reilly. It's another thing to put together a package that Barry Trotz will accept for Ryan O'Reilly. And I talked to Ryan O'Reilly again yesterday morning, along with the great John Glennon, and he's made it pretty clear that he doesn't want to go anywhere. And he's had conversations with Barry Trotz over the last few weeks to that effect. He said that doesn't guarantee that I'm not going anywhere, but Trotz has talked with him about how he wants him to be a part of the future here. So I remain today, Joe, at 6:05 a.m. on NHL trade deadline day, steadfast in the approach that I would be very surprised if Ryan O'Reilly gets traded today.
Yeah, it is interesting that the Devils put it out there that they're interested. So we'll see. I mean, is there a price where it's like you just can't ignore it anymore? Like, okay, well, that's just too good. I mean, that's just like, how do I, an offer I can't refuse. I mean, I certainly, if I'm Barry Trotz, I want Ryan O'Reilly to be part of the future of this team. But you're also talking about a guy who's getting older, and that one's interesting. I'd love to know what the conversation back and forth would be. You mentioned the Trotz possibly getting being a quote unquote buyer as far as like a long term answer. Is there anybody who comes to mind who would fit that bill?
Well, I think it would probably be what we talked about a little bit yesterday, which was, what if Trotz does like Dylan Cousins and the Sabres make him available? Or, in what I think is way less likely, because this kind of seems like a move that would get made in the summertime if it gets made at all. But like if the Canucks are just fed up with Elias Pettersson and they realize they're not going anywhere and they want to sell on him, could you involve yourself in something like that? Like, I don't think Barry Trotz is going to involve himself with like a guy that's 34 years old and has 1 year left on his contract that he does feel like can help him next year. But I don't think he's going to do that. I think it would have to be a younger guy that he feels like is like a long-term center. Like that's really the door that I think I'm leaving open for that.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, that makes sense. And obviously one way or the other, that's what they have to address. So, obviously, as we talked about yesterday, Sisson's someone to watch today.
Yep.
McCarron, possibly somebody to watch today.
Those are the big two. Like,
Yeah.
Beyond that, like, I mean, all their defense core right now with Yossi hurt is, a bunch of guys that were in Milwaukee at different points this year. So I don't think they're going anywhere. Brady Shea's not going anywhere. I can tell you that based on the contract and the way that he's played. Although he did play great last night, so good for Brady Shea.
Nice goal.
Yeah,
good job,
good
Brady.
for you for having the intern pick Brady Shea and Preds pick the click, and then he scores immediately. And it's like, oh, good. Rexrode's just running away with the competition. But like McCarron, Sissons, O'Reilly will get some calls, I'm sure. Beyond that, like you've got Stamkos, Marchessault, all these guys that are high-dollared and highly paid and big contracts that aren't really going anywhere. So it really, I think, comes down to probably those three at the middle of Sissons, McCarron, and Ryan O'Reilly.
I've seen some Preds Twitter conversation to the effect of, well, unfortunately, Trotz isn't going full rebuild, and it's like, guys, like that's not an option. Like that is actually impossible to do given where they are.
Yeah, like, I mean, I've thrown it out there before. I don't think they'll do it. I don't think they want to do it. But like there are some, we talk about the high-dollar, high-priced, long-term guys. There are a couple of them you could move. Like you could trade Philip Forsberg. There would be interest out there for Philip Forsberg. I guarantee it. Now, I don't think you want to do that, you could trade Roman Yossi. There would be interest out there for Roman Yossi. Now he's hurt right now, so that kind of ends that. But like in the offseason, if you wanted to really shake things up, you could do it. Like you could trade Roman Yossi. I think there would be interest. In Stamkos at this point with the production based on the pay and his age, I doubt it. Doubt there'd be a whole lot of interest. Marchessault, I don't know, but I kind of doubt it that there'd be a lot of interest, and there won't be in Brady Shea based on the way that he's played. So you could trade one of those guys in Forsberg or Yossi. I just don't think there's going to be, nor should there be, really any appetite to do that.
And even if you let's say you trade one of them, okay, I mean, fine, and so that's more of a rebuild. But again, you still have an expensive core of veterans. Like you're there, that's not changing. So you have to build around it.
I think what's going on now is pretty clear, and I think the Novak trade kind of fits into it. Barry Trotz has looked at the roster throughout, and I don't think this is just the last couple of weeks thing. I think he's looked at it throughout the year and has said, we got to churn this thing. Like we got to, as much as we can, you got to really make this thing different for next year. Like Bunting is a guy that is a different type of player than what they have. Now, he's not the guy that's going to get you out of your seat and overly excited. Like he's good at retrieving pucks, winning battles, and then directly going to the front of the net. Like they don't have a lot of those guys. So that's a different style of player. They've created some cap room where he can go out and make some moves this offseason via trade, via free agency, and bring in some new guys. They can't totally overhaul it based on where they're at, but I do think it's pretty clear that he's trying to create as much room as possible to kind of shuffle the deck around this offseason.
You say shuffle the deck, and I think of shuffle the deck chairs on the Titanic, but maybe I'm just being a pessimist.
It could work out that way. I don't know. I mean, at the end of the day, regardless of like the different type of moves you make, future success next year is heavily dependent on, is this just a down year for Stamkos, Marchessault, Brady Shea, all your top guys that you pay a lot of money to, or is this a downturn in their career and they're not coming back from it? Like that's what the future success depends on, is the answer to that question.
Right. No matter, I mean, there's a lot you can do to help,
Sure,
or different degrees of help, but that's still the core question. And I don't know.
I don't know what the answer is.
Yeah, and that's where it's like if you're doing everything you can, that's where like the coaching change becomes easy to see as a possibility.
Yep. 615-737-1025, our phone number. It is trade deadline day in the NHL. What do you want to see the Predators do today? And what are some big time moves that could happen around the league as well? We'll get into all that coming up next. Robby and Rexrode, 1025-1063, The Game. Welcome back in, Robby and Rexrode, 102.5, 106.3 The Game. Robbie Stanley, Joe Rexrode, Nick Keys are here with you on this Friday morning. It is NHL trade deadline day. Reds have already been active. They've moved Nyquist. They've moved Novak, Luke Shen. What more do you want to see from Barry Trotz and the Predators today, as the deadline is at 2 p.m. Central Time today? So I'm sure it's going to be a very busy day in the National Hockey League. Let's head to our 102.5 The Game phone line, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. Welcome in Ryan in Mount Juliet. Ryan, good morning. Thanks for calling in.
Morning, guys. Preds need I hate to say it, but Preds need to look to see where to get rid of Sissons. I know he'd probably be very valuable out there, especially with another year on his contract. Kills me to say it, but see what the market is with Big Sexy. I know it won't be much, but there are teams that could use a fourth-line, third-line guy like him for the playoffs. And just honestly, the only players I wouldn't touch are O'Reilly, Stamkos, and Marchie. If you can get a team desperate enough for Brady Shea, I mean, I'd see what is available and see him do it. But otherwise, that would be probably my list of people who would touch. I mean, if you have a team desperate enough to take Soros, I mean, let him go. I mean, look at the way he's performed this year, and there's no telling if he bounces around next year. I will say about Stamkos, you were saying that maybe he's on down thread. He had the same issue with Tampa a couple of years ago. He had a very down year, not as bad as this year, but he had a down year. And then the very next year, he popped off 40 goals and almost 80 points.
Yeah, thanks for the call, Ryan. I mean, Stamkos has had some ebbs and flows in his career, Joe. Now, I would argue that in an 82-game season, when he's fully healthy, and injuries have been a big part of his career, but when he's fully healthy, he hadn't really had an ebb and flow like this one. I mean, you know, I look back to, I think it was the 19 and 20 season. He played 57 games. He had 66 points, 29 goals. He battled a bunch of injuries around that time. You know, he came back in the playoffs that year when they ended up winning the cup. And, you know, he scored the big goal in the cup final in like his first game back. But he had a lot of injuries that he was going through. And it was like, all right, is Steven Stamkos like going to make it through this part of his career? And he did, and he came back. Problem is now he's 35, and that's the question. Like at 35, is there a bounce back coming? Well, clearly, Joe, you know, I said this on July 2nd, the day after that they got all those guys with Stamkos, Marchessault, Brady Shea, but specifically Stamkos and Marchessault. Like Brady Shea is kind of separate from this discussion. You know, it was an exciting day. We talked about it. I loved it. But I did say, like, somebody's going to end up being right and somebody's going to be wrong, right? And like clearly Tampa Bay did not want to commit the amount of years or the dollar amount to Steven Stamkos that he wanted. Otherwise, he'd be back in Tampa Bay. Jonathan Marchessault did not get the years or the dollar amount that he wanted. Otherwise, he'd be in Vegas. So they made decisions to move on from those guys. Regardless of how you want to slice it, that's what happened. Like they made decisions to move on from those guys. And somebody's going to be right and somebody's going to be wrong. We're 1 year in, so it's not like you can judge the whole thing yet. But so far, the Lightning in Vegas are right and the Predators are wrong. We'll see if that changes at any point.
Yeah, and then when you throw in Shea, you know, it's just amazing that all three would be this disappointing, you know.
Right.
And I'm not saying the exact same degree of disappointing, but like the fact that like none of the three were like what close to kind of what you were hoping for. Yeah, that's kind of why we're talking about, oh my God, the Preds, you screwed up by winning last night. What are you doing? You need to have the most chance possible of being at the top of the draft.
I mean, they've looked great the last two games. It's like, man, what's going on out there?
Oh boy.
They may played their best game of the year against Boston on Tuesday, and then they followed it up last night. They got scored on 32 seconds in. And I was like, here you go. All right, they're back at it. And then they just turned it on for like 40 minutes, Joe. I don't think they were out of the offensive zone the whole time.
I mean, I gotta say, like this time of year, you get the Preds, no matter what Preds team we're talking about, you get them to this time of year and they seem to play well. But right now, it's a bad thing. Stop doing it.
On the Sissons front, I am interested to see how the Predators view him, because there will be some interest in Sissons. Like he's a veteran guy that can play in a lot of different situations for you. that is cheap and has one more year left on his contract. So they're going to get some interest in Colton Sissons. What will it take for Barry Trotz to actually pull the trigger and do it? And is that something that he's interested in doing? Or does he view Colton Sissons as a part of the answer? Like, it's kind of the same thing to a lesser degree with O'Reilly. Like, it's one thing for other teams to have interest, but you have to have interest in trading them if you're the Nashville Predators. Does he actually have interest in trading Colton Sissons? Same thing with Michael McCarron. I think you'll probably get some interest in him too, given how cheap he is and there's another year left and the role that he plays. So there's going to be some interest in those guys. At what's it going to take for Barry Trotz to actually pull the trigger?
Yeah. It's, I mean, I really, I've for a long time, I think I've appreciated Colton Sissons, I mean, I think that he's just been a really solid player here for a long time. So, I mean, is that a guy that you also, I understand that O'Reilly is a little bit more of a better player, but I'm just saying in terms of like the locker room presence type thing,
Yeah.
Is Sissons a, like a quote unquote identity player to the point where you're like, yeah, it's more valuable to keep him for the next few years than to get whatever you're going to get from him today.
Yeah, I think a lot of this, Joe, is just going to depend on the offer. Like I said it yesterday, there's an idea out there, and we'll see. I don't know if I necessarily believe it, but there's the idea out there from some that Michael McCarron could fetch you a second-round pick. Like, to me, I like Michael McCarron a lot. I really do. But if somebody offers you a second-round pick for him, I think you got to do it. Like, I think you've got to make that deal if you're Barry Trotz. And look, that's another hole that you create in your lineup at that point. But it is a fourth-line center. Like, you should be able to go find a fourth-line center if you're Barry Trotz. Matter of fact, like, I think in a perfect world, if your lineup is structured it forward the way you ultimately want it to be, Colton Sissons probably is your fourth line center, if that's like in a perfect world. So
right.
I don't know if I can see. I don't know if the Predators are going to trade both of those guys. Like, to me, I think you may pick one, and then next year you ride it out with the other one that you keep, and they're here. So, but maybe not. Like, maybe the offer is so good on both of them that you can't turn it down. I would just personally have a tough time turning down a second-round pick for Michael McCarron.
Yeah, and I think just his youth and his size, he would fetch more, right? I just feel like Sisson's one of those guys who like could be more valuable to you than he is in general as a player.
Yeah, I think so. And look, Sissons kind of is like that playoff guy, right? That a lot of these contenders look for in terms of, all right, he can play center, he can play wing, he can penalty kill. Like, if you're really in a pinch, he can play on the power play. Like, he can do a lot of different things. And people love those type of players this time of year. Plus, he's really cheap, which also, helps.
Yeah. No, I mean, and I could see him going somewhere and helping someone make a run, which would be, well, I mean, I guess that would be very on brand for the way things are going in the league right now. Predators fan out across the league. And
well,
has Tommy Novak had his hat trick yet?
They play tonight, I think. So I think he's making his Pittsburgh debut tonight. We'll see what.
Bring your cheap hats. Bring your cheap hats, Penguins fans.
I mean, I'm kind of hoping for a line of Novak, Tomasino, and Cody Glass.
Yes.
I doubt we're going to see that line, but it would be pretty funny. It'd be like that. They've got Shen back there too, so they need the Predators to trade him a defenseman today. Or Jim Diamond talking about this, and just get an entire lineup out there of Nashville Predators.
And Saros.
Yeah. Well, Ryan brought that up on the call earlier. They're not going to trade UC Saros today. I'm just going to go ahead and throw that one out there. They're not moving on from the goaltender today. Real quickly, Joe, around the league, some big trades have already happened. Tampa's been aggressive. Brock Nelson of the Islanders last night got traded to Colorado. So there's your second line center if you're the Avalanche. And by the way, in the middle of all this happening with Brock Nelson last night, Cale Makar put up 6 points and Nathan McKinnon put up 5. So
sure.
There you go.
Bless you.
Thank you. Had to sneeze real quick. Also, Mikko Rantanen, looks like talks are ongoing between Carolina and Dallas for the services of Mikko Rantanen. So first off, what a great turn of events for Carolina. You make the trade for the guy, and now like 3 weeks later, you're having to think about trading him back somewhere else because he won't sign with you. So it looks like Rantanen could end up going to Dallas, but I think it's contingent, according to Friedman and the other insiders, on a long-term deal being done. And as of this moment, that has not worked out yet. So we'll see what happens on the Rantanen front.
So does Rantanen just really want to just torment his old team? He just wants to get back over here and just be hell for the Avs as much as he can.
I guess so. Just like I will not sign in Carolina, but I will in Dallas.
Wow, that's wild.
It's very interesting.
Yeah, I kind of feel bad for the Hurricanes.
I kind of do too, but like also, and like I think Marty Natchez, who was traded from Carolina to Colorado, was talking about this yesterday, and he's like, "Yeah, it's probably something you need to figure out before you make the trade as to whether or not he's going to sign a contract."
It's true. It's true.
So we'll see what happens on that front. 615-737-1025, our phone number. We'll keep you updated throughout the show on the NHL trading deadline, and obviously any moves that the Predators make, we will have you informed on that as soon as they happen. Coming up next, a decision, I think, that's been made in the NFL. We'll see how it plays out. That just stuns me with its stupidity that we'll get into coming up next. Robby and Rexrode, 102.5, 106.3, The Game. Robby and Rexrode brought to you by First Horizon, Big Bank Muscle, Small Bank Hustle. Visit firsthorizon.com/get it all. We're taking your thoughts on our phone and text lines driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. Jared Stillman will be with us at 7 o'clock. We got a lot to get into with Stilly later in the program. Joe, an interesting development with the Cincinnati Bengals. Trey Hendrickson has apparently been granted permission to seek a trade. Now, it is worth pointing out that just because you've been granted permission to seek a trade does not mean that a trade will happen. Does not mean that after, I guess, gathering some information of what your market looks like out there and all those things and bringing it back to Cincinnati doesn't mean that you can't get a long-term deal done at that point. But Trey Hendrickson is a guy that, granted, is 30 years old, but has also, Joe, led the NFL in sacks over the last 2 years. He had 17 and a half sacks in 2023. And what did he do last year in 2024? He followed it up with 17 and a half sacks, 2 consecutive years with 17 and a half sacks. By the way, on a defense that, aside from him, was pretty atrocious last year. So I said this when they made the decision, Joe, to tag T. Higgins. Is that really the smartest idea? Like, is it really the smartest idea to invest money in T. Higgins? And they're theoretically trying to come to another long-term deal with him. We know they're going to have to pay Jamar Chase. They're already paying Joe Burrow. Does it really make sense when that organization to really go all in at wide receiver if it means you lose Trey Hendrickson? We talked about that earlier this week, and here we are a few days later, Joe, and he's apparently out there seeking a trade.
Well, and I guess, look, we got Mr. Fake Cap coming up here at the top of the hour. I'm also going to say, look, you can make it work. Yes, you have to, if you're going to sign everybody like this, or you're going to sign a certain number of top players, there's some mid-level guys you'd like to have that you have to move on from. That's where the cap shows up in its reality. But my God, I'm going to go to Warren Sharp here. At Sharp Football, he had an interesting tweet about this. He said, the Bengals and Eagles both signed their QBs to extensions in 2023. Since then, one Bengal has been re-signed to a contract over $40 million. That's Logan Wilson. The Eagles have signed 8 players to such contracts: A.J. Brown, Landon Dickerson, Lane Johnson, Devontae Smith, Jordan Mailata, Zach Bond, Darius Slay, Saquon Barkley. And this just goes along with, by the way, I'm just going to continue because Warren Sharp has this great rabbit hole of, like, for example, the team grades that came out. Bengals cafeteria ranked deemed worse than prison. Dead last in taste, dead last in freshness. They don't even get 3 meals a day. Just for an example of, again, an organization that, Brian Callahan came here and he was like, yeah, he's used to, you coaches in the offseason, you coaches are scouts. And in July, by golly, we're going to clean up this facility and you're going to show up early. You're going to put a fresh coat of paint on the building. And, it's just, I understand, like, I guess Mike Brown is like, he's only worth like $900 million, which does make him the poorest owner in the league. But still, like, this league makes you tons of money. The value of the franchise has skyrocketed. You are going to be rich beyond your dreams because you own an NFL team. You can't be this cheap.
Well, and to that point, like, I understand from a salary cap standpoint, they can make it work, but clearly they don't want to do that. Like, they don't want to spend to that level.
Right.
So if you're not going to spend to that level, does it not make more sense to prioritize Hendrickson over Higgins and let Higgins go so you have something on the defensive side of the football? I don't know. Like, I understand you've got Joe Burrow. You're going to have to pay Jamar Chase. T. Higgins is a really good player. But I would rather have Trey Hendrickson right now for next year's team and the year after that. I'd rather have Trey Hendrickson than T. Higgins.
If anybody watched Cincinnati play last year and watched them play defense last year, and then imagine Hendrickson not on that freaking defense. We're talking about just it is almost melted butter. It's not hot butter. it's like almost melted. It's just like non-existent. It's and so maybe again, to me, you don't make the choice. You pay your players. But I agree. If you're going to make a choice, the choice would easily be Hendrickson over Higgins. Is this just deferring to Burrow? Could you believe that it's more important to him that he keep both of his top receivers? I mean, maybe. But like if I'm Joe Burrow, I'm also sitting here like, oh my God, so I got to score 48 a game to get a dub? Because that's about what it's looking like right now.
Exactly. And again, like I guess until they come to a long-term deal with Higgins, you can leave open the idea that they could trade him, right? Like they've tagged him, but they could end up trading him at some point. And I guess until Hendrickson finds a trade, you can't just totally bash Cincinnati yet. I saw that story yesterday and was just like, if you end up losing Trey Hendrickson out of this, is it really worth it? Like, is it really worth what you're doing? They're in a really interesting spot because it's 2 years in a row of them not making the playoffs. Obviously, 2 years ago, Burrow got hurt, so that's the biggest reason why. Then last year, he's healthy the whole year, and he plays great for the most part down the stretch, and your defense was so bad that it didn't really matter. Like, there's a ton of pressure on that organization next year to get back in the mix. You can't have one of those guys at quarterback and not be in the mix in the AFC.
No, I mean it's it's hard. It's mind boggling to me that you could screw it up like this. And I look at the Bengals and it's just like I feel like they aren't deemed the poverty franchise that they should be deemed, and that they basically, because they got lucky with Joe Burrow. Well, look, Burrow and Chase, obviously. I mean, Chase, but those are, you're at the very top of the draft. In a lot of years, like, you just can't screw that up. This may be a year where you can screw up the top of the draft. But like in those years, it's like obviously Burrow, and then it's like Chase or Penei Sewell, and you're not screwing it up either way there, right? So they lucked out to be crap, to be total buns when they were. But like, I mean, they have not done something as bad and as stupid as their rival Cleveland Browns have done, but I think they should be regarded in the same way. And I feel terrible for Joe Burrow.
You could fix that cafeteria grade if you're Cincinnati by just going to get some of that Skyline chili. You're right next to it. Just bring it over there and serve it. I'm sure NFL players would love that on a daily basis, particularly like in August when it's 98 degrees outside. Get some of that in there.
I mean, I know you're being sarcastic. I'll sit there on the hottest summer day in the middle of Columbia, and I will eat a vat of Skyline chili. So
I will too.
Okay.
I
just want to make sure.
I had some a few weeks ago in Orlando, Florida. It was beautiful.
Now I really want some.
It was great. 615-737-1025, our phone number. Some interesting thoughts from Charles Robinson on our program yesterday on a variety of different fronts. We're going to start on the Darnold front. I thought his take on Darnold, very interesting. We'll get into that. We'll get into Shedeur Sanders, Cam Ward, all that coming up. Stilly will be with us at 7 o'clock. Robby and Rexrode, 102.5, 106.3 The Game.
Like that's what I wonder is if, you know, Darnold does have kind of a soft market, but there's a team that doesn't really have any other options and gets desperate, then it's a little bit of a different situation. I don't think Paul Kaharski's wrong. I think PK's right. I do think that, you know, it depends like where the number is. If all of a sudden, you know, Darnold's number is much softer than people thought, then maybe there's, you know, a conversation where they entertain potentially signing him. But
that's Charles Robinson on our program yesterday discussing Sam Darnold and what his market could look like as free agency opens up next week. And Joe, Charles seems to think that based on people he's talked to, that maybe the market for Darnold will be a little bit softer than we thought heading into free agency in terms of how many teams are willing to entertain the idea of giving him, you know, 3-4 years on a deal, somewhere in the neighborhood of $40 million per year. Could he come in significantly less than that? And if so, what does that do to his market? Does that make it more likely for him to end up back in Minnesota? Could other teams that maybe aren't in the mix with him at a certain number get in the mix if it comes in lower than expected? I thought interesting stuff from Charles yesterday. What did you make of what Charles had to say on the Sam Darnold front?
Yeah, I mean, everything that we're seeing, including just the Vikings decision, adds up to teams in this league don't think Sam Darnold is worth even 40 a year at this point. Now, again, it just takes one. So maybe, you know, the Raiders talked themselves into that. I'm going to believe, I just, again, I can't come up with, and maybe, you know, maybe Mr. Stilly will tell us at the top of the hour, like, you know, why the Titans are lying about this. I can't really logically find the reason for the Titans to lie, and just, you know, it doesn't.
I think it's the 5 stages of grief.
Yeah. So, but Charles left the door open there too. Is the market soft enough? Soft, hard, you know, whatever, soft enough that, you know, that, is that what it, I guess it'd be a soft market or it wouldn't be a hard market, it'd be a robust market.
Robust, I believe would be the word.
Okay. Robust would be the word. Yeah. You know, but if is it soft enough that the Titans can, you would decide to get in there? And, you know, I mean, maybe, but, I'm a little bit surprised. I'm a little surprised that the Vikings, obviously they had a good sense for things, because when they did this, you know, I assume like there's no way that he would ever, you know, that it's very unlikely he would circle back to them, but maybe that's what it is. Maybe it's just going to be a 2-year deal with them. And then you'd have this really interesting situation with him and JJ McCarthy. If I'm the Vikings, that's what I want, because now you feel great about the rookie, but he's coming off an ACL, but he's the future. In the meantime, your present remains strong. And then, you know, look, if Darnold keeps building on last year, then maybe at some point, either you're just doing the Packers plan and you're, you know, sorry, JJ, you just have to sit for a few years, or you could deal him. I mean, but that's why I was like, okay, well, if that's what they want to do, then of course you tag him. Well, they didn't tag him because apparently no one thinks Darnold's even worth 40, and 40 in this league is not much.
I was going to say, I mean,
quarterback at all.
That is the one thing about this that is interesting. I mean, the cap is going up pretty significantly every year in the NFL. We're seeing what the quarterbacks are kind of flying off the board for, whether it was Jordan Love, who there was a lot of disrespect thrown Jordan Love's way by Stilly yesterday. Whether it's Jordan Love, whether it's Trevor Lawrence, whether it's Tua, like all these guys making more than $50 million a year. Goff, he's making more than $50 million a year. So that's kind of the going rate right now for a quarterback that's out there seeking a deal. Now, I say that Baker Mayfield bounced around after that to the Rams and the Panthers and all that. And then he came in, had a good year for Tampa Bay, and his longer-term deal was pretty manageable. Is that the way it works out? I think it's like 30-something a year, right, for 3 years for Baker Mayfield. Is that where Sam Darnold ends up winding up here?
If, like, again, if I'm the Titans and you could sign him for, okay, again, let's say it's a 4-year deal for 120. Wait, no, I'm really good at math. Yeah, 4 times 3. Yes, 4-year deal, 120, 75 guaranteed. I think it would be crazy to not do that. I think that, because again, it's 75 guaranteed. Okay, so again, basically you're committing for 2 years, and then you can do whatever at that point. And if it works out, you've got yourself a price controlled quarterback who, again, if he plays like he did last year, you would have a guy who is, I would argue, better than some guys who are making 20 million plus more. And again, like Prescott's at 60, right?
Yeah.
Then he is a year. I just, if you could get him for 30 flat, I mean, my gosh, Tannehill got the 30 deal, 5 years ago. And that was a good deal. That was a great bargain.
And that's why one of two things here I think is interesting. Like, either the Titans have looked at Darnold's film and they agree a lot with what Charles was talking about yesterday, which is the film is maybe a little bit worse than people think that it is looking at it. Maybe the Titans agree with that. Or maybe the Titans deep down are like, yeah, I'm not really worried about Sam Darnold because we're drafting Cam Ward at number 1. Maybe that's just the plan, is they're going to draft Cam Ward at number 1, and they're not really worried about the rest of these quarterbacks.
Maybe. Wait, has Cam been in yet? Cam's been in?
I don't think he's been in. I think it may be today.
Yeah. So, I mean, that's the thing. Like, how do they know? I mean, this has got to be a huge day for that, right?
You would think. I don't know. Maybe he blew him away at the combine.
Yeah, I guess. So maybe they're having him in today to just show him apartments.
Yeah.
Talk about where he will be living in Nashville.
You wouldn't believe how many Cracker Barrels we got around here, Cam. That's unbelievable.
Let's introduce you to our Cracker Barrel representative, Robby Stanley. He will tour you with all of them.
You wouldn't believe it. It's just an unbelievable amount they've got around here. I don't know. Like, I'm with you in terms of, if the money is not going to be, even if it was as expensive as we thought. I mean, we never got into the 50 some odd million a year with Sam Darnold. So if it's like 40, I thought that's worth considering if you're the Titans. If it's less than that, then I think it's, to just dismiss it out of hand is the one that kind of weirds me out a little bit on this.
Yeah, and again, Charles did. I watched those games. He was bad. He had bad, he had bad help. Didn't have help. He was under duress. But some of the stuff he was talking about, which again, Charles is hearing these things from personnel people in the league. So clearly, some people were scared the heck away from those last 2 games. And again, I'd love to see just the alternate reality of, he was good and they lost, but he was good. I think it would be a totally different conversation potentially around him.
615-737-1025 is our phone number. Jared Stillman will be with us coming up next. We'll help him sort through the 5 stages of grief on the Sam Darnold front. Let's get into the Predators and the trade deadline and what the Preds should do today, as the deadline comes up at 2 p.m. Central Time. All that coming up. Robby and Rexrode, 102.5, 106.3 The Game. Hour number 2, Robby and Rexrode, 102.5, 106.3 The Game, brought to you by First Horizon, Big Bank Muscle, Small Bank Hustle. Visit firsthorizon.com/get-it-all. Robby Stanley, Joe Rexrode, Nick Keys are here with you, and we welcome in our friend to the program, Jared Stillman, who joins us every Friday morning at 7 o'clock. Stilly, good morning. How are you?
I'm fabulous. How are you two?
Doing awesome. Appreciate you taking time to be with us this morning. So, Stilly, it's been a tough week. We've had a lot of conversation about Sam Darnold this week. PK putting it out there that doesn't think the Titans are going to be all that interested. So I have 2 questions for you. Number one, Charles Robinson is talking about how the market for Darnold may not be as robust as maybe we once thought. What do you make of that? Why do you think that is? And would an apparent lack of interest from the Titans be a signal to you that they're leaning Cam Ward?
So that's a really loaded question. I'll take the first one, which is the Charles Robinson front. The teams that need quarterbacks, the Titans, the Giants, the Jets, the Raiders, outside of the Steelers, every team that needs a quarterback is what I think we would traditionally call one of the dumb teams, right? The Browns, in the socialist government NFL, the teams that seem to always put themselves there towards the bottom. It feels like the Titans are certainly in that category as well. So I think there may be something to do with that. Ian and I were talking about this off the air yesterday about why Minnesota doesn't want to keep Sam Darnold. And I think there's a part of this, Kevin O'Connell, young coach, experience success, drafted his young quarterback. And maybe there's a little Vrabel of I can do it. You'll see, I can do it. With Kevin O'Connell, that maybe in week 8 of next year, if Sam Darnold's not on that team, he may be sitting there saying, yeah, maybe I probably should have stuck with Sam. But so I think that a lot of these teams are either being stupid or they're holding their cards close to the vest. Pittsburgh's going to go sign Darnold, but they're not giving anybody any hints that they are. The second thing is, what was the second question again?
Well, does it signal to you that they could be interested in that Cam Ward's their guy?
Well, I mean, when Kaharski came on the show the other day with you guys and said that if you want the Titans' first pick, you have to drop next year's first. So if the Giants want to get to 1, they have to give up next year's first. Well, that tells me that they don't love Cam Ward, because last year the Giants tried to trade with New England to move up to number 3, and they offered next year's first. And this isn't a rumor. We saw it on Hard Knocks. They offered next year's first, and New England was like, yeah, we're going to just go with Drake May. So if you like the quarterback, next year's first is not enough to get you to move off of it. So again, I see this as a binary choice in terms of starting quarterbacks. It's either Sam Darnold or it's Cam Ward. And the Titans, for some reason, must be so smart. I don't know what it must be. All these great fired general managers they have. Not that there's anything against fired general managers, but they got 4 general managers in there. And apparently they've got some mystery quarterback that I don't know that they're going to pull out of their tushies that apparently is going to be better than the only 2 viable options it seems that they have. Because again, if they loved Cam Ward, then they wouldn't be really discussing the number 1 pick. And it is obvious from all of the, conjecture that's out there that the Titans are legitimately discussing the first pick. So again, I think it's the stupid teams doing stupid things, turning their back on Sam Darnold because they watch one bad playoff game. And I think that the Titans, if they end up without Sam Darnold as their quarterback or Cam Ward as their quarterback, it'll end up being something stupid like PK suggested, which is Will Levis returning with Mac Jones.
What did you call that? Did you say that was a bulging question? What kind of question did you say that was?
I don't know. I said loaded question, but
loaded. Okay. That makes more sense. I worry sometimes with your word choice lately on the air. We may need to have one of those sensitivity trainings with you. First
of all, we do have sensitivity training. Joe, did you not get the email? We do
have that coming up.
Yeah, I did get the email, but I think you may need an extra session on your own. We may need to, and then we'll have
right around
Jared.
the corner.
Yeah. No, thank you. I did get the email. So one thing I think you're missing here, I can't believe that you don't miss what anyone in this league ever says about anything, but you said the Vikings turning their back on Darnold and O'Connell. I mean, Rappaport is adamant that the Vikings want him back. So I'm just saying I just saw his report yesterday, and he's like, they want it back, and then it's those guys, and then they'll figure it out. But then if I'm the Vikings, I certainly would rather have Darnold back, and then if McCarthy's ready, fine, and then you make the transition. But I guess to me, if that's true, then the Vikings obviously had a sense that people just don't think as much of Darnold as you do. But again, I will raise my hand. I'm in general agreement that, to me, like, if you can get Darnold for whatever 30 some a year, whatever the guarantee would be, what would it be? If you did 4 for 120, what's the guarantee? 75, 80?
Well, I mean,
something like
you're
that.
Not getting the Titans are not getting Sam Darnold for that. You have to pay more. You are the worst team in the league. You have no good players. Your coach
unless you're the only team, unless you're even the only team offering that. I mean, apparently the market's way softer than you anticipated. I anticipated. I feel like most people anticipated.
The Titans have to pay the suck tax. The Titans have to pay the tax. To me, I would, again, even if I was sitting back here and cards to the vest because I'm the Titans and I'm trying to get the most value right now in discussions for the number 1 pick. So I don't want anyone to think that I might not take Cam Ward. But I'm going to sign Darnold, and I'm hearing all the things that are being said right now. I'm still going to offer him $40 million a year, because then I'm like, I can sleep easy at night knowing I'm going to get the quarterback that I want. I mean, this idea that the Titans
sounds like something a dumb team would do.
No, I mean, that's what Rupert Murdoch did to buy the NFL from CBS. In 1994, and I think this is a great business lesson. In 1994, the NFL rights were up, and the NFL for the NFC package, which is better than the AFC package because the NFC package has the bigger markets in it. And in it, CBS wanted to pay $200 million. They were paying $220, and the NFL wanted $250. And CBS was saying, we're losing money at $220, so we want to pay $200 million. So in a leverage play, Jerry Jones and the late Pat Bowlen met with Fox. Rupert Murdoch and Robby, you might be a little too young to remember this, but Joe, you remember when Fox was a nothing network, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So Rupert
the
Murdoch
Tracy Ullman show
meets with Jerry Jones and Pat Bowlen and offers $400 million. And again, CBS is losing money at $220. And the reason Rupert Murdoch said that he offered $400 million was he said, I'm buying a network. I'm putting Fox right there with ABC, CBS, and NBC by paying extra, even though I'm going to lose the money. I'm buying a network. And he had to offer so much money that the NFL couldn't just turn around, go back to CBS and say, oh, well, they're offering $300, so give us $250. So it had to be so much money. That is the you suck tax. You have to pay that. Jacksonville had to pay that for Christian Kirk a couple of years ago, exploded the entire receiver market. And so this idea that the Titans can sit there and say like, oh, well, we're only going to do this on our terms. It's like, who is going to be your quarterback? Oh, well, we'll just run Mac Jones out there. And I will say this. Let's say PK's right. They don't go after Darnold. They trade the pick, and they run Levis back out there in some capacity. Because PK has, I don't want to say it on Joe's show or I'll get all mad, but PK is hell-bent on this idea that Will Levis is going to be on the team next year. That Will Levis
you're going to say he has a something for something? You got to stop doing
a little
that.
Chubby. But, with the idea that Will Levis is going to be playing quarterback for this team next year. If they do that, then I will not, in any capacity, call for Brian Callahan to be fired next year. Because if they're sending Mac Jones and Will Levis out there, that to me, you cannot blame Brian Callahan if they give him no quarterback this upcoming season. You don't have a quarterback. You are the worst team in the NFL. Because you're the worst team in the NFL, you truly have the choice to take Cam Ward, and nobody can stop you. There are 2 options for quarterback. You have to pay the price. You can't nickel and dime everything to the top. You have to pay the price at quarterback. And apparently they're smarter than me, I guess.
Here's what I don't understand.
Crazy thought.
Here's what I don't understand. beyond all the Darnold stuff, because we can go round and round on that all day. But like, why does it have to be?
Plus, don't we all agree on it?
Yeah, I think for the most part, like I think you two are probably a little bit higher on Darnold than I am. But even me would be like, I don't think you should dismiss it out of hand. But what I don't understand is why does it have to be like we're not getting Darnold and it goes all the way down to like Mac Jones or Jameis Winston? Like, I understand Aaron Rodgers is a pain in the butt. I understand Russell Wilson is weird, but both of those guys on 1-year deals are way better options than Mac Jones.
They don't want to pay. I mean, that's what this is about, right?
But are you really
Like,
paying either one of those guys that much?
I mean, Russell's probably, again, I think my dad has this thing. Whenever a quarterback signs a new contract, like Trevor Lawrence signs for $55 million, and I tell my dad, like, Trevor Lawrence just signed for $250 million and it's $55 million a year. And he, because he's a little bit old school, is like, they pay these quarterbacks too much money. And I'm like, well, the other option is the owners keep the money. Like, when we have to tune to Netflix on Christmas Day, like, the players get a cut of that. And so when it comes to these quarterback salaries, I keep being told by everybody that $40 million is just way too much for Sam Darnold. I mean, $40 million is just the going rate for a tier 2 quarterback is $55 million. So when it comes to Aaron Rodgers, sure, maybe Aaron will take less to go somewhere where, he feels wanted and respected, but how much less? Like, Aaron's still going to want $30 million when the going rate is $55 million, and Aaron almost threw for 4,000 yards last year, had 28 touchdowns and 11 interceptions, and Russell won 10 games or whatever it was last year. Like, those guys are going to want some money. The reason that Russell didn't want any money last year was because the Broncos were paying him. So, again, the reason they're going to go to Mac Jones is because they're being cheap. Like, that's that. Again, we're using the PK reporting as if it is gospel and that there could be no way the Titans could be sending out a smoke screen or anything, that it's going to be some Scarbini backup that they're going to try to bridge in there the way that Arthur Smith tried to bridge in Mariota in Atlanta. And if they do that, then they are stupid. And they're a combination of stupid and cheap. And so for me, I really just, again, to your point, Robbie, I understand the idea of like, okay, well, what about Rodgers? What about Russell? But again, when Mike Borgonzi takes the job and he talks about solidifying the quarterback position, I don't think guys north of 35 solidify anything at this point.
So the other day, in the midst of another win, I want you to win a Jared versus Joe. I don't think it's happened in this calendar year, but some people were texting me that you have in the past professed your admiration for Mac Jones and that you have totally flip-flopped on Mac Jones. Is this true or not?
So I thought that Mac Jones could be like a reclamation project quarterback, because I don't know about you guys, but I still can't get over the fact that Belichick hired Matt Patricia to run the offense in Mac Jones' second year. Joe, I think it was you that said it like maybe a month ago that was like
horrific move.
Can you even believe Belichick? Like, I couldn't believe Belichick was doing it while he was doing it. But to look back in hindsight, to see Belichick doing that, it's like, what? So I thought to myself, like, maybe he could be a guy where, like Darnold with the Jets, like Tannehill with Adam Gase, like some of these guys where, they're not as bad as their organization makes them look. Rich Gannon feels that way about Daniel Jones. But when I put the quarterback board together, the two quarterbacks that really stood out as just sucking were Mac Jones and Kirk Cousins. And so, look, maybe it's all New England's fault. Mac Jones won 2 games last year, both against the Titans. Mac Jones got in those games and just threw the ball to Brian Thomas on every play, but apparently you can't do that against any other team. Only Denard Wilson's defense can you do that to, I guess. And the other teams you can't. I mean, Mac Jones had less big-time throws, according to Pro Football Focus, in 2023 as a starting quarterback than Joshua Dobbs did. Dobbs
can
can't
sling
roll
it, man.
with that. I can't roll with that when Sam Darnold is on the table.
So you created your own quarterback board? Is that you create a little board? Did you draw little weenies on it? Like, tell us about this thing.
All right, we probably need to stop all that.
All right. I gotta stop.
The free agent board.
Stop
the free
being so
agent board is
phallic,
something
Jared.
that we
That's
do
the
every
bottom
year
line.
on the program. And again, we go through We go through the stats, watch some film, we do all kinds of stuff. Spent pretty much all day Saturday and Sunday on the free agent boards, which is why I know that if I were the Titans and I could scrounge the money together, I'd have some interest in Dan Moore Jr., the left tackle out of Pittsburgh. Now you're going to have to pay about $20 million a year to get him, but I might put him at left tackle and flip J.C. Latham to right. Today, we will have the Jared Stillman free agency plan. It is a tradition unlike any other every Friday before the opening of free agency. And, we use our little flare pins right here. We got the blue is just a fact. The red is bad. The green is good. And a lot of guys, it kind of looks like a Christmas tree. There's a mix of red and a mix of green and a little blue in there. And when it comes to Kirk Cousins and Mac Jones, it's pretty much all red. So I'm out on Mac Jones. And Mac Jones, I could sign for $4 million to be the backup. But as far as a starting quarterback is concerned, he hasn't done enough for me to want to do that over, say, a Sam Darnold or using the pick on a Cam Ward. And I don't even really like Cam Ward, but I would still pick Cam Ward before I would roll with Mac Jones. And if the Titans do this, this is why I believe that if the Titans do this, then they're punting on 25. If Paul's right and Levis returns in some capacity as the starting quarterback or competing for the quarterback job, then they're giving up on the season. Then Callahan will be the sacrificial lamb. They'll win another 3 games. They'll pick 1st and 4th next year, and they'll hype that up. But I'm not ready to punt on the season. I've seen way too many teams have a great offseason and turn things around by playing a 4th place schedule. The positivity that I think comes with that. That's what happened to Borgonzi in Kansas City. Alex Smith got there. They were in the playoffs that first year. So I'm not ready to punt on 2025, but if PK's reporting is accurate, and that is what ends up happening, they will be giving up on 2025.
Jared, we'll be listening at 2:00 today, and we'll be listening for Barry Trotz on the program as well.
See you guys, 3:00 for Barry Trotz.
There you go. Jared Stillman, our guest, joins us every Friday. We'll react to what Stilly had to say coming up next. Take your thoughts, 615-737-1025. Robby and Rexrode, 1025-1063 The Game. Nicholas, now it's falling apart with Rand. Welcome back in, Robby and Rexrode, 1025, 1063 The Game. Robby Stanley, Joe Rexrode, Nick Keys are here with you on this Friday morning. We'll have TD with us at 8 o'clock, getting into all things Titans with him. Appreciate Stilly for being with us in the last segment. Hey, Joe, I don't know. I mean, it kind of feels like some acceptance starting to finally set in for old Stilly as it relates to the Sam Darnold part of this. I think he's gotten to the end of the 5 stages of grief.
Is he there? Yeah, he's that is acceptance, right? Yeah. Yeah, it feels like he's starting to get close to that. Look, I'm keeping, and maybe I'm just wasn't as emotionally attached to the whole idea as him, but keeping an open mind on this. I mean, if the market is as soft I'm just using Charles's word here,
You did.
as it appears, then I think it's wild that the Titans wouldn't have any interest in looking into that. And I hear what Jared is saying on the Titans tax. We've talked about that. I don't know that it's like the Raiders are bad too.
Well, if you're the only one offering this a certain deal, I mean, isn't that kind of the tax?
Yeah, but like, if the Titans and Raiders were both interested in Darnold, like, do the Titans have to pay like $10 million more a year to get him over? I mean, I don't know. I would personally rather live in Nashville, Tennessee than in Las Vegas, Nevada, but that's just me.
Yeah, I know. Like,
Tom Brady is, it'd be great. Be amazing to work with him, I guess.
You could take you to Montana at any point.
That's right.
Who doesn't want to go there?
You could get some skiing in.
You could. I mean, yeah, I'm with you. Like, the Raiders have been a bad organization for a long time. Now they do have Brady, and they got Brock Bowers, so there's some things to like there about where they're going potentially. Max Crosby's hanging around, so some things to like there. But like, by and large, like, is there really a huge difference between the Raiders, the Titans, the Jets? It was amazing to me looking at the odds. Like, that the odds were for Sam Darnold going back to the Jets were higher than the Titans. I'm like, it's not happening. Like, why in the world would he do that?
Yeah, I've ruled that one out, and maybe I shouldn't, but I can't. He's experienced that, and it was a terrible experience. So that one does not seem right. Look, like Pittsburgh. Yes, if you compare Pittsburgh to the Titans organizationally, they have a great, if volatile, young receiver. They have a good defense. They have good head. Like, there's an example of that's a winning organization, and quarterbacking the Pittsburgh Steelers. I mean, that means something, still in this league. So yeah, if you had those two things, you're going to pay a tax. You also don't have state income tax here, but
That's true.
But I get that. But again, are the Titans just completely out on him? Is there a mystery name? To your point, I mean, it's not like we know for sure I mean, if we have to go back, PK didn't defend it. He just said that's what he thought. He thought it would end up being something like that. A bridge kind of guy with Levis. He did. The only thing he reported was that they were not getting into an exorbitant deal situation with Sam Darnold. I think it could still go a lot of different ways after that.
615-737-1025, our phone number. More of your reaction to get to on the quarterback front for the Titans. We'll give you the latest updates on the NHL trading deadline as well. The Rexrode at 7:45, TD at 8 o'clock, weekend winners at 8:30. All that coming up. Robby and Rexrode, 1025, 1063 The Game. This week's Nashville's best deal is from Brewster's Real Ice Cream in Hendersonville. See why Brewster's is a scoop above the rest with the best ice cream, shakes, sundaes, splits, blasts, and more. Visit thegamenashville.com/deals to get half off a $50 gift card while supplies last. Also, make sure you tune in later today to 94.9 The Fan for Vanderbilt baseball as the Commodores host Xavier. Pregame beginning at 4:15, first pitch at 4:30. Coverage also available on the 94.9 The Fan app and at thegamenashville.com. Taking your thoughts, 615-737-1025. You know, as far as the other part of this that PK threw out there the other day, in terms of trading back, obviously the Titans want a future first-round pick if you're trading back out of the first overall pick. My question is, are they actually going to be able to get that? Like the Giants are the team right now that everybody's connecting to moving up to number 1 and going to get Cam Ward. Moving back 2 spots, can the Titans land a first-round pick next year? And if they can't, would Titans fans be okay with them moving back to 3 and it not involving a first-round pick from next year, Joe?
Yeah, I mean, look, my initial reaction to the idea of a first-round pick was I can't see them getting that. I definitely agree that they should aspire to that.
Sure.
There's probably something in between where it lands. Because I've seen people say, like basically they swap the picks and then like 2/3, which I know doesn't sound that exciting. They're not in the 3rd round this year. I mean, that's two legit football players. Could it be like the Giants 3rd this year and 2nd next year? I mean, to me, that's, if you look at like point value, that's probably fair. But also, again, the whole, like the way the board shakes out, I saw a mock draft today or maybe yesterday. I think I glanced at it this morning where, it's just like Titans taking Carter, Browns taking Travis Hunter, and then the Giants just can stick where they are and get Cam Ward.
Yeah.
Obviously, they'd love that. They hope that happens. They have to feel like, especially if the Titans aren't going to sign a Darnold or a Roger, somebody where it's like, this is definitely the starting quarterback of the Tennessee Titans in 2025, then it's still certainly on the board that the Titans could go with Ward. But the team has to feel like there's a threat that the Titans might actually take that quarterback, or is there someone looking to jump ahead, or the Browns? Charles made the point or the case yesterday that the Browns could be interested in Shedeur Sanders because he fits what they do. They liked him. But could you talk, if you're the Giants, do you fear, that's actually just misdirection and they're going to take Cam?
Yeah. Are
the Raiders going to try to jump up there? The Titans would obviously have to move out of that premium pick position, but they could maybe get more picks and a bigger haul. Or do the Giants worry that might happen? So they have to get up into that. I mean, obviously the Titans, if they're not just sitting there and taking somebody at 1, then they want teams to be worried that other teams want to get there to get Cam Ward. And I think it's Cam Ward. I mean, that seems to be most of the reporting around the NFL, is that Cam Ward is clearly viewed as the guy now by most people.
Yeah, and then, can you get another team involved other than the Giants, whether it's the Raiders or the Jets or whoever? And then that becomes the question of, all right, so all these other teams want Cam Ward. Why don't you at number 1, right? Like you're just as quarterback needy as anybody else. Like, why don't you? And look, I'm not saying all the other teams are right. That's just one thing we'll probably talk about if that situation ends up playing out that way. I think the more people, like if you're the Titans and you come to the conclusion that Cam Ward's not your guy, you really need as many other people to be in on Cam Ward as possible. And maybe you can drive up the price to get, like, if the Giants are scared to death that the Raiders are going to move up and go get Cam Ward, maybe they get desperate with their price and you can really just kind of pull one over on them and still end up maybe with the guy you're looking for at number 3 anyway.
Yeah, that's the hope. And then if that's how it works out, whoever it is, then if you're the Titans, then you better damn well hope he doesn't become a great quarterback in this league, because you had that top pick. And again, I'm first guessing right now, I wouldn't do it. So I'd be fired too, but I can't be fired because that's not my job.
It's true.
My job is to sit here with you and try to sneak in phallic jokes at the expense of Jared Stillman. But if you're these people, then I mean, this is kind of tenure defining right from the start, right? Either you go with them, and the Titans have another stab in the 21st century after several failures of drafting a QB at the top of a draft and hoping that he would be what they wanted him to be. Doesn't mean you ever that you. It doesn't mean you stop trying, but is this the right guy to do it? Or you don't go there, and then you hope against hope that all of a sudden, Patrick Mahomes Part Duh does not materialize in the Meadowlands or Las Vegas or wherever.
I do want to bring up something that LD from McMinnville on the text line earlier brought up, which with free agency beginning next week is interesting to keep in mind. I've talked about this guy actually before when we were going through some free agent options, but Javon Holland is out there. He was a safety for the Dolphins. Now, apparently the Dolphins are trying to get him back in the fold, and Cameron Ward, friend of the show, has put it out there that the Dolphins are trying to get him back, but if not, two teams could be interested in him at least in free agency, one of them being the Carolina Panthers, the other being the Tennessee Titans. And and I said Cam Ward, and we've been talking about Cam Ward. It's Cam Wolf.
Cameron Wolf, friend
Cam
of the
Wolf
show.
put that out there.
Close enough.
Cam Ward is a little busy. Yeah, Cam Ward may one day be a friend of the show. We'll find out. But Cam Wolf put that out there that the Panthers and Titans could be interested, and that his price tag by the time free agency is said and done could end up falling somewhere in that $15-17 million per season range. So just worth pointing out that Cameron Wolf has put it out there on the NFL Network that the Titans could be interested in Javon Holland, the safety.
Well, they need good football players. So thumbs up. You got money. You got cap space. You got all kinds of needs all over the field. Go get good football players. And whether you sign a significant veteran quarterback deal or not, you have money. So spend it. And that's where, Amy Adams Strunk apparently is just going to be a total non-factor publicly until, like PK said, until it's time for the Lombardi Trophy to be handed out, and then she's going to push through everybody and get to the front of the stage. But you know what? If her people spend money, then by golly, that's the best way she can be involved.
I agree. Although I kind of miss our Miss Amy press conference updates, or our press conference is not the right word, but even like state-run hostage video updates. I miss our updates. We need more. Who
will do them, by the way? Mike Keith moving on to the Vols.
I don't know.
At some point, maybe next week we should get into that. Like, what the heck? Who is doing Titans play-by-play?
I don't know.
This might be a good topic for next week.
Could be. There's nothing going on next week, is there?
That's right. There's actually news next week.
We'll get to it at some point.
Do it for my rant.
615-737-1025, our phone number. Speaking of the rant, Rex Rant is coming up next. We'll have TD at 8 o'clock. Weekend winners at 8:30. All that ahead. Robby and Rexrode, 102.5, 106.3 The Game.
Sometimes he wakes up on the wrong side of the bed. And sometimes he's just, well, Joe.
Awkward moment, let's do it.
This is the Rex Rant, now on Robby and Rexrode.
Another thing, stop playing us, man. We the Detroit Lions. We the Detroit Lions. Stop playing with us. I don't even watch TV, but I heard everybody already pick the Packers over us. Stop playing with us. That's all I gotta say, man. Don't let these tears fool you. It's all dog around this mug.
It is that time of the day. Time for the Rex Rant with Joe Rexrode. You can check it out every morning here on the program. I forgot about the Jamal Williams rant. I hadn't heard that one in a while. That's a good one.
That was fantastic. It was like emotional, and then all of a sudden, boom, flipped the switch.
Dead serious.
After that super exciting win, well, to keep your Packers out of the playoffs. Not to get the Lions in the playoffs, but to keep your Packers out of the playoffs. So that was
very upset.
Yeah. So I want to talk about that. I want to talk about that world a little bit today and really follow up on someone I talked about recently. Is named Andy Isaac, and he passed away this week. And it's very sad. 45 years old. A guy, again, I wouldn't say Andy Isaac. I've never met him in person, but I think this is true of a lot of people. I think this is true of, at this point, millions of people, I would say, is that they didn't meet him, but they knew him in some way or knew of him. I interacted on him with going back to like the early days of probably even like my blog covering Michigan State. He's a Michigan State grad. He's a diehard Detroit fan, and he battled Hodgkin's lymphoma for 19 years. So if you haven't heard of Andy Isaac, again, I've talked about him before, but he created a following on social media called, World of Isaac is a Twitter account. I think he was on Instagram too, but I don't, you know me. I can do one thing.
You ain't going there.
I ain't going there. And a couple of things. First of all, this week, the outpouring for him has been crazy to me, including ESPN Sports Center, Elle Duncan. I really want to shout out Elle Duncan. Here's what she had to say this week after Andy Isaac passed.
Sports world lost a beloved voice today. Andy Isaac, the Detroit sports superfan and social media personality behind Fatterday and the World of Isaac, has died. Known for his humor, passion, and larger-than-life presence online, Isaac battled Hodgkin's lymphoma for nearly 2 decades, sharing his journey with honesty and heart. Detroit teams paid tribute to him in his final days, lighting up scoreboards with #Fatterday, his signature celebration of food, fandom, and life. A true original, Andy Isaac leaves behind a lasting impact on sports and the digital world that he helped shape. Andy Isaac was 45 years old.
I mean, when I saw that, like, Sports Center, did a thing on him, I'm like, holy cow! Like, all the Detroit teams, Michigan State, Michigan, all of them did tributes to him. Fatterday, for people who don't know, I mean, he built a huge fund with just fun things like he would always get these experimental foods. It's like chocolate marshmallow bugles, and he would film himself like trying them. Like all these food products have like these test test products, right, of different flavors. He would always find the most obscure stuff, try them. He would, he went to every like awesome restaurant in Michigan and had pictures of it. But the point is, he was a diehard sports fan who actually created positivity online. And so I would like to challenge all of you listening who are part of Preds Twitter, Titans Twitter, Vol Twitter. See, I'm hard on Vol Twitter, but as you know, Robby, it's just because it's so huge that there's just more idiots.
A lot of them.
Vandy Twitter to look at Andy and think about how he was able to take this. As much as we rip social media, he's an example of like social media like making lives better because he just had fun. And again, we're talking about, so here's an interview from The Athletic with him from 2019. So Detroit sports now has moved out of it. The Pistons are good. The Tigers are good. The Lions are good. The Red Wings they might make the playoffs. But they had a stretch where like all 4 were awful, okay? Like it's kind of crazy. And in Nashville, we can relate right now with the Preds and the Titans. Like both. How about Preds? You get the #1 pick along with the Titans this year. But during this he was asked by Bill Shea in the Athletic article about still being like Detroit misery and how he's still able to like not be, basically a total jerk bag online. He says there's people on Twitter who build their brand on being super negative about sports. That's fine. I understand, but it gets kind of depressing. It gets kind of morbid just being negative all the time. So I try to balance out the angry portion, but it's hard. It's hard when I really get into Michigan State football to the point where I'm physically angry at the games. It's not a good way to live when you're physically angry, end quote. But point being, he made it fun, and I would like to challenge people to be more like him. I'm trying to think of like for Vol Twitter, who do we have? I guess Big Orange Mac would be an example of someone who, like, he may be angry about the Vols and he's into it. We've had him on the show and he's like really, really into it, but also like it's sports and he kind of keeps that in perspective. And then he maybe go a little far in some other areas of the internet. But I mean, that's fine. Different strokes for different folks.
Yep.
But I want more people like World of Isaac and fewer people like I see way too often. Like every year we keep having these stories. This kid Zeke Mayo for Kansas, and he's like Kansas having a disappointing season. Like people are seriously going online and telling him to kill himself. And it's like, what would possess you as a human? Yes, you you're cowardly, hide behind a fake, profile, but like to even type that out. Like what is going on?
It's really weird. Yeah.
It's really messed up. And so just shout out to Andy, to people who loved him. I mean, I have a lot of friends who were actual like in-person friends with him. Chris Vanini, friend of our show, was friends with him. And it's sad, but also like it's wild to see like the impact he had and stuff I didn't even know. Like, he had like the governor of Michigan, weighing in on like a Verner's argument about which flavor is better, and Fago, and stuff like that. Like the number of people who followed him nationally and stuff, pretty amazing. I mean, I didn't even realize it, but it's cool to see that someone like this who had fun with it, who yes was an emotional fan, but yes had all kinds of reason to complain for many years, still had a positive, fun message. And rest in peace to Andy Isaac.
Yeah, very well said. I was not aware of him until you started talking about him a few weeks ago. Actually, I think the first time we brought him up the show was probably a year and a half, 2 years ago, somewhere in that neighborhood. But the Jumbotron, I think it was all at the same time, like a couple of weeks ago. It was the Red Wings. Obviously, the Red Wings and Pistons play in the same arena, but you've got those two. You had Michigan State. You had the Lions, like all flashing Saturday up there in his name, and it was pretty cool. Like just to see the impact that he had on that area and their sports teams.
Yeah, so we need this. This is what we need. This is what fans should do. So if you're a member of whatever Twitter, think be more like Andy. And also, it doesn't mean that like you can't speak your mind. I mean, I think that it would be fitting to exit with some words from Andy that will be, we've played before, and they will be I promise you, this is something we'll go to often because it's always accurate.
It almost looks too pretty outside to say it, but it's really important. It's Sunday. It's game day. Bears today. Bears tomorrow.
Oh!
The Bears every day of lives. Go Lions.
We all hate the Bears.
Okay. Kaiser, I thought you were bleeping.
No response.
Okay. Anyway.
What do you mean?
Yeah. So the point that, it's fine. Hopefully you heard that and understood it. The empty spaces are F the Bears. F, like if you put bleeps in, then you know what I'm saying? Like
they were bleeps
in, then there were bleeps there. I got just empty space. I got nothing.
You're on Zoom, man.
Maybe it's my broken computer.
Yes.
Okay, well, good.
Good job, Keiser.
There you go. Guy, I apologize, Keiser. See, I'm going to be more positive online and on our show. So yes, those words from Andy Isaac will live on forever, and we will play them many, many times in the future.
Teron Davenport will be with us coming up next. We'll get into the Titans and what he expects as free agency opens up next week for the Titans. We'll have weekend winners coming up at 8:30. All that ahead, Robby and Rexrode, 102.5, 106.3, The Game.
ESPN's Teron Davenport talking Titans now on Robby and Rexrode on ESPN 102.5 The Game and the Game Nashville app.
It is that time of the week. Every Friday morning at 8 o'clock, we are joined by Teron Davenport, ESPN NFL Nation Titans reporter, host of Talking with TD. And this is TD's time of year to shine. Well, actually, every time of year is TD's time of year to shine. But we head to our 102.5 The Game phone line and welcome him into the program. TD, good morning. How we doing?
Hey, good morning, man. I'm doing well. And like you said, you grind to shine. So let's do it.
Let's do it. So, TD, we are right around the corner from free agency with the legal tampering period opening on Monday. Then next Wednesday, free agency kicks off. So I guess just for starters, number one, how active do you expect the Titans to be? And what do you make of this year's crop of free agents?
Yeah, well, I mean, they've said multiple times they're going to be selective. And so that means if they have a guy and he's their target and they miss, they're not going to just quickly move to the next one and overspend on that guy. So I think it's going to be a matter of adding some low-cost free agents. They may one or two, apparently, per Cam Wolf. They're in on Javon Holland. I don't know about spending that much on the safety, but we'll see what happens. So I think it's going to be just one of those types of periods where it's different from last year because they don't have to spend the money as much as last year. They have somewhat of a foundation built.
So if there's one guy, because obviously we've talked previously, we were in agreement. Trey Smith was a guy who would have been worth pursuing. I think the Chiefs. If anybody had doubts on that, I think look at what the Chiefs have done. That would have been to me a very good signing. If there's one guy in this period at any position that you would be like, boom, that's a slam dunk, who would it be?
There aren't any real high-end guys that I feel would just be an automatic, hey, you got to go get them. But Morgan Moses, to me, and I know that's not exciting to Titans fans, but it should be because that will help shore up that right side of the offensive line. Morgan Moses at right tackle, it seems like that's going to be a target that they're going to go after. And, Stillman and I, we've been the last two free agency cycles, we've been kind of saying, hey, not kind of, we've been literally saying, hey, go get him, go get him, go get him. I know he's older, but I think I'm pretty sure that's a guy that's going to have some interest in that right tackle.
So, TD, even prior to you pointing this out on Twitter yesterday that I saw, we've talked about this kind of heading into the offseason, but for NWI, it's going to be really fascinating to see what he gets as free agency opens up. And you brought up, the Tutu Atwell contract yesterday. How do you view NWI, where things stand with him, and the interest level that you think he might get out there in free agency?
Yeah, I think he is going to get interest. Now, I will say Tutu Atwell, you're talking about like a speed demon. He's a guy that brings that speed, and everybody desires speed. But guess what? Everybody desires guys that can score touchdowns. And we saw what NWI could do last year with those 9 touchdowns. And then the versatility that he brings, he can play all 3 receiver positions and double as an arrow guy, a gunner as well. So you have those. I think he's going to get some interest. I know the Titans, that $8 to $10 million range, they'll go ahead and pass. I'm curious if he'll get that. I mean, you look at Atwell getting the $10 million. I mean, I would think that NWI would be able to get something, along those lines. But he said that he wanted to stay. I talked to him at Locker Cleanout, and he really said and expressed, his desire to stay here. He talked about how, he got married here. He grew up as a man here. His pretty much circle is here. He talked about, he has a family here. He just had a child last year. So there's a lot going on for him here in Nashville. And we all know, we moved here from other places and we fell in love with the city, and he's no different. So we'll see what happens. But I wouldn't be surprised if he moves on.
See, that's the thing. That Stilly was talking earlier about the Titans tax, which I get. I mean, if you're as bad as the Titans have been, that's true. But I actually do think that people they sometimes win battles because of Nashville. But on the Sam Darnold front, TD, how do you view the Sam Darnold situation in terms of, like, do you feel like, first of all, I think your opinion of him, like, I have a higher opinion of him than you do. I think your opinion of him is more in line with what the league apparently thinks of him. because the market apparently is just not as robust as I know I thought it would be for him. But what's your view on him, how it will turn out? Do you feel like the Vikings ultimately end up back with him through all this? Like, where do you think this goes?
There's a chance, but I know during the year last year, and this was before the debacle against the Lions and before the Rams lost, I know, from talking to Kevin Seifert, he said that they were pretty much all in on J.D. McCarthy the following season, which is what we're going to be in as of Wednesday, right? The 2025 league year starts. So I look at it this way. Look, Darnold is solid. I think he's a solid quarterback. I think he could help you win. But I don't see you winning because of him. And you win because of guys that you pay $45 to $55 million. And when I look at the whole big picture, just like I explained to Jarrett yesterday, and this is the way the Titans are looking at it, right? You have, a $45 million, $50 million quarterback, right? And that's somebody that if you have him, you got to give up opportunities to sign, 2 or 3 players. It could be a Justin Reed at safety, at Nick Bolton at linebacker, whatever, something along those lines, right? And if you sign a guy at $30 million and are able to add those players, are you better than if you sign Darnold at 45 to 50 and can't add the players? And that's really the question you have to ask yourself. And I'm pretty sure actually that the Titans are on the first, where he's not the guy that they could go ahead and sacrifice being able to add 2 or 3, foundational type of players and still win. So that's kind of the way they're looking at it. 30 million, from what I understand, is like where they would go, like a shorter to mid-term type of deal, 2-3 years. I think the league is still not sure about Darnold. And I tell you this, the Vikings themselves are not sure about Darnold. You know why? If they were sure, they would have tagged him. He put the numbers up in their scheme, and they're not making the all-out effort to retain him. I think that says a lot.
So you would, and I totally hear that. I also, like, to me, if I had a chance at Darnold at like 30, I mean, like, we also could be talking about Levis and Mac Jones. Like, I don't see how any Titans fan could, or whatever, right? Like, if they don't draft someone and they don't go after Darnold, like that, all of a sudden it gets, I mean, it gets pretty slim, right? Like, would you do Darnold at 30?
For like 2 years, yeah, I would do that, and then just kind of tuck it away and keep the quarterback position in mind, like do some strong homework, on that Marcel Reese class, and say, okay, look, man, we're gonna look to go all out on this group in 2 years. I don't know that Darnold is a long-term fix, and it's so crazy because the ties, the similarities for Mike Borgonzi. I mean, he was with the Chiefs assistant GM. They had the number 1 pick. The quarterback class, the top of it was Geno Smith and E.J. Manuel. And now, I'm not saying these guys are the same quarterback, but they're being, looked at as like the same level of prospect, and Cam Ward and Shedeur Sanders, right? And then you had a 27-year-old former top 3 pick in Alex Smith that they were able to obtain, and they knew their plan. And Alex Smith was cool about it, as far as like, hey, look, I know I got 2-3 years, and then I'm probably going to have to train my replacement. And he did it. And Mike Borgonzi told me that it takes a special kind of guy to do that. So if they go to 2 to 3 year plan, it's like, okay, do you believe that Darnold, who's also 27, who's also a former top pick, and a guy who, turned his career around, do you feel that he's the same type of person, type of leader, type of teammate as Alex Smith is? And that's really going to be the question. And if that is the case, then yeah, I would rock out for 2-3 years, 30 million. Let's have it, and then just go ahead and figure out what you're going to do in the future.
TD, last thing for you here. It's always interesting this time of year because, this time last year, TD, the conversation coming out of the combine was, man, is Drake May going to fall? Like, is Drake May's stock falling? And then he goes 3rd overall, and we knows what's happened since then. You got all the Shedeur stuff this week of like McShay putting it out there that he's heard from people that like Shedeur didn't seem all that interested in the interviews and stuff like that. Like, what do you make of, like, if you're a Titans fan listening to all this, what's real, what's not real this time of year, and how you kind of read in between the lines, all this stuff.
Yeah, if I was Shador, I'd change my last name to Smith or Johnson or something because that poor guy being a Sanders is like a curse in the NFL media world. Whoever that team is that Tom McShay is referencing, like, how do we know that's not a team with the 17th overall pick? And Shador's like, yo, why the hell am I in here? Like, I'm going top 10. Like, why am I in here? How do we know that's not the case? But all I do know is that there are clips floating around out there where you look at the one, I think it was NBC set he was on. It was supposed to be like a quick 3-4 minute. They had him for 10 minutes when he was done, and it was no problem staying the 8 to 7 extra minutes. He got up and he shook everybody's hand on the set, including the producers. And then I watched him go from set to set, serious to, NFL and to, some of the other ones. And he was real cool about it, shook everybody's hands, gave a couple people hugs, and then even took interviews walking in between, which the prospects are not commanded to do. It's their choice. And then he stopped at the end and he did one with Josina Anderson. And before he ducked away, a young lady named Karita Parks from Baltimore, who covers the Ravens, she had a couple questions and he stayed and did that. I say all that to say, if he's going to show that much interest in all of them, including someone who's not a major outlet, I for sure believe that he is going to show interest in an NFL team report. So, a lot of these random things that you get, it's anonymous. And I think if you're going to say something damning like that about a prospect, you need to put your name on it. That's just my opinion. But it is what it is, and that's what happens this season.
TD, it's going to be fun next week. NFL free agency, always fun. Looking forward to having you on and talking about it throughout the week next week here on our station. And enjoy the weekend, my friend. We'll see you soon.
Yeah, for sure. Buckle up because, it looks like it's going to be interesting.
Yeah, yes, it does. Teron Davenport, our guest, joins us every Friday morning at 8 o'clock here on the program. We'll react to what TD had to say. We've got weekend winners coming up at 8:30. All that ahead. Robby and Rexrode, 102.5, 106.3 The Game. Tune in to 94.9 The Fan today for Vanderbilt women's basketball as the number 8 seeded Commodores take on number 1 seed South Carolina in the SEC women's basketball tournament. Tip off at 11 a.m. Pregame will begin at 10:45. Coverage also available on the 94.9 The Fan app and at 949thefan.com. Robby and Rexrode brought to you by First Horizon. Big bank muscle, small bank hustle. Visit firsthorizon.com/get it all. Speaking of, Joe, nice win for Vanderbilt women's basketball yesterday against Tennessee. My goodness.
Yeah, first time ever that Vanderbilt has won 2 games against Tennessee in women's basketball in the same season. They went 2-0. First of all, it's ridiculous, by the way. I know these leagues get out of hands huge, but they should always – Vanderbilt and Tennessee should play each other twice in basketball, men's basketball, women's basketball. So there's a little mini rant. But now Michaela Blakes went nuts in the second half. Ayanna Moore, Camille Pierre, they got a heck of a trio. Lady Vols here faded. They had a really bad loss to Georgia, too.
Yep.
I still think they're dangerous. I mean, this is a team we've seen beat UConn. But, they're not going to be a top 4 seed. Both of these teams, I believe, are going to start the NCAA tournament on the road. Tennessee probably is a 5 seed. Vanderbilt maybe is like a 6-7. Vanderbilt does get South Carolina today. But, yeah, it was very impressive on the Vanderbilt front, man. I mean, Michaela Blakes is a cheat code. And it's just going to be so much fun to watch her progress here through the years. And I know, I've seen some Vol Twitter, Robby. Now, this is Vol Twitter that I approve of because it's – but they had I think it was like Michaela Blake's. Well, she won freshman year of the SEC. She's right there for national too. But a member of all Twitter had then put a picture of Kim Caldwell and said, "Michaela Blakes, you are a Lady Vol."
Yeah.
Can you imagine that? Tennessee comes in and swoops in and takes her back to Knoxville. I have my doubts that'll happen, but I like the sentiment. I like it.
Diana Rossini putting this out there that the Raiders are exploring veteran quarterback options on the free agent and trade market, and that includes the possibility of trading for a current starting quarterback. Joe, with that in mind, I mean, it brings to mind something Charles said yesterday of like the idea of trading for Geno Smith from the Seahawks. I mean, look, obviously, whether it's DK Metcalf, Geno Smith, like people are going to make the Pete Carroll connection to Seattle, so I get that, but if that's the way that the Raiders choose to go on the veteran quarterback market, number one, I mean, it's probably not good news for the Titans if they're looking to trade back and have people fight over each other for Cam Ward. But number two, like I would be interested to see who the Raiders would target in free agency or via trade. The Geno Smith thing was interesting that Charles Robinson threw out there.
Yeah, look, that's super interesting. And then what's Seattle's corresponding move?
Right.
That's what I'm here for is like because we talk about all the same names over and over and over again, but can we get like a trade that you did? Like, remember the earth-shaking Russell Wilson move that, was supposed to shift the balance of power to Denver. And apparently none of us realized that he was, halfway to buns. I guess that means one bun. I don't know.
He was a singular bun.
He was a single bun. Not quite buns, but one bun. But that's what I'm here for. We need something like that. And I'm here for a little Geno Smith and DK Metcalf, humongous trade, and all of a sudden Vegas is a way more interesting team to watch.
Yeah, I mean, Geno is, we talk about him when we're talking about reclamation quarterbacks. Like he's in an interesting spot right now. Like if you're him, you got to be thinking, okay, so you're releasing Tyler Lockett, which that one I get. But if they end up trading DK Metcalf, it's like, geez, can't wait to play quarterback for you guys next year. I'm just going to target Jackson Smith and Jigba 500 times out there this year.
Yeah. Seriously. I mean, yeah. Remind me. So Lockett just got released, right?
He's released. Yes.
32 years old. What's the viability of Tyler Lockett at this point?
I mean, it feels like it started to go the other way pretty quickly on him. Like, there's a time where he's pretty productive receiver. I'm looking at his numbers from last year. I mean, 49 catches, 600 yards, 2 touchdowns, 12.2 yards per reception. I don't know. I mean, that kind of different type of guys, different players, but it kind of screams like Tyler Boyd to me right now.
Yeah, you get it. Yeah, I mean, he's obviously different. Yeah, I mean, different type of player. He's always been a speed guy. That's the thing, though. When you're that and you get to 32 and the production, and Smith and Jigba started to like become a more important part of the offense. That is one of those probably just buyer beware. Like know when to hold them, know when to fold them, and not when to sign someone when they're on the back half, on the back nine.
615-737-1025.
A lot of bad analogies there. Kenny Rogers and golf.
Hey, by the way, Joe, you talk about the NFL Combine. It's your second favorite football part of the year has gotten underway too. College football spring practice. Sparks is out there tweeting some drills from Tennessee football spring practice number 1. David Sanders out there going through some pass sets. It's nice stuff.
I'll check it out. Yeah,
get excited.
I'm here for all these coaches canceling their spring games because people can't scout their players. Let's do it across the sport.
We'll have weekend winners coming up next. Got a lot of games to get to this weekend. Robby and Rexrode, 102.5, 106.3 The Game.
It's time to pick some winners. We hope. Robby and Rexrode have weekend winners for you. Now
On ESPN.
1025 The Game and the Game Nashville app.
Weekend winners here on Robby and Rexrode. Last week, I would say an average to slightly below average week for us. I went 3-3 with my lock. Rexrode 3-3 with his lock. Teaser 2-4 with his lock. So the locks were good last week. We did a nice job locking down on things. The overall standings, Robby Stanley in first place, 7-5 overall, 2-0 with my locks, 9 points. Rexrode 6-6, 2-0 on his locks, 8 points. Keezer 5-7, 1-1 on his locks, 6 points. With that in mind, we get to a busy weekend in the world of sports. And we begin, Joe, with Vanderbilt and Georgia. Vanderbilt going on the road for this one. I start on this. Give me Vanderbilt to get a nice win on the road before SEC tournament play begins. Get a little confidence going heading into the tournament. I think they get the dub. Give me Vanderbilt on the road. Joe Rexrode, who you got?
Yeah, I'm going to go with Georgia. Really love how they're playing lately, including a massive win over Florida last week. And Florida is, I think, as scary as anybody out there when they play well. Georgia is playing themselves into pretty close to lock status, and I think they keep it going at home against Vanderbilt.
Keezer, Vanderbilt in Georgia, and an interesting one coming up on Saturday. Who you got in this one?
Yeah, I've been encouraged by their play too. I did get some bits and pieces of that game against Florida. But yeah, I just think it's a little too much for Vandy to end the season. So give me the Bulldogs this weekend.
Going with Georgia against Vanderbilt. South Carolina and Tennessee. Now, Joe, I feel like this one, there's not really a line yet, but we're making one up because South Carolina is buns. So we're going Tennessee minus 10.5 is the line you've thrown out there. Who you got, Joe?
Balls lock.
Wow.
And I will say, South Carolina has a terrible record. South Carolina is, I'd love to see South Carolina in the ACC. They'd be like 12-6 in the ACC. I mean, they actually have a pretty good freaking team. They blew out Arkansas recently. They almost beat Auburn, almost beat Florida, blah, 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 and on and on. But I do think Tennessee's got to be ticked off after the way the Ole Miss game went. It's senior day for Zakai Ziegler and Jemai Mashek. I think they're going to come out with their hair on fire.
SEC homer, Joe Rexrode, Nick Keezer,
That's
Vols minus 10.5.
Yes, against the Fighting Elijah Campbells. I'm going to go with Tennessee in this one.
Going with the Vols. Give me South Carolina. I think Tennessee wins, but I think it'll be South Carolina plus 10.5. Tennessee wins by 9 in this game. Joe, what do you think of that?
Okay. I mean, I think that absolutely. They could be, it's one of those things you're up 14 and then you put in the bench with a minute to go and they hit a couple three. I mean, that's why betting can be a risky proposition.
Yes, it can. The Predators, who are all of a sudden red hot, playing the Chicago Blackhawks this weekend, who they've had a great deal of success against over the past few years until their most recent game where they did not have success. Nick Keezer, Predators and Blackhawks. Who you got?
Yeah, it's their last game against them this year, and I frankly think that they keep the win streak going. 3-game win streak, and the Preds beat the Blackhawks after the deadline. How different will the team look? Guess we'll have to find out.
I will go with the Nashville Predators as well, which, Joe, if they win this game, some fans are going to be looking around saying, what are you guys doing? What's going on around here? But I think they're going to win. I think they're going to make it 3 in a row. Who you got between the Predators and the Hawks?
Yeah, me too. Making a clean sweep. They're screwing it up. Good job, Preds. Way to screw it up. Start losing again.
We'll see. I mean, big, kind of a big game for the Tank at Bridgestone Arena coming up this weekend. So we'll see what happens on that front. Joe Rexrode, your first individual selection.
Little Big Ten action tonight, which means we actually have a line on it. Purdue at Illinois. Illinois minus 4.5. I think it's actually going to be a really good game. Illinois had a huge win, blown out Michigan last weekend, which, by the way, helped our associate executive assistant producer Tom Izzo win the outright Big Ten championship last night at Iowa, which kind of stinks because Michigan State means nothing Sunday now other than just trying to bludgeon the Wolverines. But Purdue at Illinois minus 4.5. I think Purdue on the road makes it a great game. Maybe wins it outright, but I definitely like them with the points.
We're going plus the 4.5. against Illinois on the road. I like it. Nick Keyser, your first individual selection.
Yeah, thought of this team last night, and they made a trade. Brock Nelson goes to the Colorado Avalanche, and Colorado will be playing the Toronto Maple Leafs on Saturday. And I think that Colorado will be winning this one and make it my lock as I get this started for our own picks.
Leafs minus 1.5.
I'd have to see who's favored in that. Where's the game?
I don't know if there's a line for it yet. I looked at all the NHL options on there, but I know that they're playing.
Well, they're all 1.5.
Okay, there you go.
But I just need to know. I don't know who's favored. It's not showing it on my app right now. Well, I believe Colorado's probably favored. So we'll go Colorado minus the 1.5 against the Leafs.
Makes sense.
There you go. My first individual selection. Give me the Vegas Golden Knights minus 1.5 against the Pittsburgh Penguins. The curse of Tommy Novak. Vegas comes in there. They win by 3 goals against Pittsburgh in Novak and Schen's debut for the Penguins. Pittsburgh's been sitting around for a couple days in Vegas. Generally speaking, not a good recipe. So we'll go Vegas minus the 1.5. Nick Keyser, your second individual selection.
Yep, staying in the NHL. This could be a team that's active today. They're kind of in scuttlebutt, conversation for Mikko Rantanen. So give me the Dallas Stars over the Oilers on Saturday.
Where's that game?
Where is it? I believe it's in Edmonton.
Well, we got to know who's the favorite in these games. Got to know what the line looks like. We're not just picking NHL games straight up.
He keeps trying to do this.
I know.
But I was looking too.
To
I did my research on who was playing, and then I checked FanDuel, and I couldn't find those lines for hockey.
With that game, whoever's at home is minus 1.5, right? I mean, that's what it is.
Yeah.
I would say so.
Where is it? You do know where it is.
From what I remember, it was Edmonton.
I know that our crack research team can figure this out.
Mm-hmm.
We'll figure it out. Joe Rexrode, your second individual selection.
Okay, now, speaking of lines, you guys can jump in here and let me know. But Alabama-Auburn, the rematch, Auburn won the first game. If it's at Auburn. So I can put Auburn minus. You guys can set the line with me. I'm picking Auburn. I feel like it's a pick-em quality game. But if you want me to
that was probably pick-em.
Okay, all right. So give me War Eagle after their also disappointing loss to Texas A&M. They're also going to be ticked off. I like ticked off teams.
Give me the Memphis Grizzlies minus 11 against the Dallas Mavericks. The Mavericks are beaten down. Kyrie's hurt. AD's hurt. They traded away Luka. Memphis, an 11-point favorite. I think they cover. Give me Memphis minus 11 and make it my lock. I'm locking down on the Grizz. Mavs just going through the motions out there. Keyser, your final individual selection.
Yes, I hate to be vanilla here. I looked at that game too. I'm going to take the Grizzlies as well. And yes, I was right. Edmonton is at home.
Well, that's good to know. Now we'll figure out if they're the favorite or not, but good to know. Grizzlies minus the 11 against the Mavs. Joe Rexrode, your final individual selection.
All right, Sunday. Allen Arena, Lipscomb, A-Sun championship game. North Alabama at Lipscomb, A-Sun championship, 1 o'clock, ESPN2. Both teams 24-9. Both teams, I believe, 14-4 in the league. It's the top 2 teams. Lipscomb had to come back to beat Queens to get to this game. If you love college basketball and you live around here, I would suggest checking it out, trying to get in there. It's going to be an amazing atmosphere. I covered a Lipscomb Liberty game a few years ago, and Casey Alexander was at Lipscomb. It was an incredible game. Liberty ended up winning that game. Give me the Lipscomb Bisons to win that game and get the automatic bid to the NCAA tournament.
Nice. Very nice. I'm returning to the NBA. Give me the Minnesota Timberwolves minus 5.5 tonight against my beloved Miami Heat. The Heat, very inconsistent. They're not going to stop Minnesota. Give me the T-Wolves minus the 5.5 against Miami. And a very disappointing season for my Miami Heat.
I'm sorry.
You're not. You got Jimmy Butler now, and apparently Golden State's going to be right there with LA in the final in the Western Conference.
Oh, baby.
Let's see what happens on that front. Final thoughts on the NHL trading deadline, which is today. We'll get to the latest on that. What could the Predators have in store before 2 o'clock Central Time today? Robby and Rexrode, 102.5, 106.3 The Game. Robby and Rexrode brought to you by First Horizon. Big bank muscle, small bank hustle. Visit firsthorizon.com/get it all. We are live from our Busy Bee Plumbing, Heating, and Air Conditioning Game Nashville studios, home of the $99 yearly Beehive membership where the buzz is always about great service. Robby Stanley, Joe Rexrode, Nick Keys are here with you. Joined us trade deadline day in the NHL. And the Predators have already made some moves this week. Nyquist was traded last Saturday to Minnesota. And then, of course, Novak and Luke Shin traded to the Pittsburgh Penguins on Wednesday. So the question is there anything more coming today for the Predators and for Barry Trotz? Whether that's a Michael McCarron, a Colton Sissons, does somebody make an offer that Trotz can't refuse on Ryan O'Reilly? As we sit here today, Joe, with the trade deadline today at 2 p.m. Central Time, what's your expectation, your view on how today could go for Nashville?
Yeah, I kind of feel if I had to make a prediction right now, I would predict that someone will overpay for Michael McCarron and that they will move him, and that will be that. That's my prediction for the day. Michael McCarron, you have mentioned a second-round pick. I think you have to do that if you're the Preds, if it gets to that. Would you do a third for Michael McCarron?
I'd consider it. Yeah, I mean, I think you got to weigh the cost of, like, again, next year, somebody's got to play center. So, like, do you have people that you feel like can play in those third and fourth line roles at center? Like, is that where Svechkov's playing next year? Is he a third line center for you? And Sissons is a fourth line center? If so, like, who's your first and second line center? Like, there's a lot. You got to figure out your pecking order there of your plan of what's that's going to look like. But yeah, I'd consider it for a third round pick. Second round pick, I'm not hesitating.
Yeah. So I think I can see. I can see how he would be appealing. You know, for a certain team that needs something like that. You pointed out earlier, Colton Sissons is so versatile. I mean, he's definitely also a guy that the team looking for a playoff push just needs another like versatile, solid player that you can use in a lot of different roles. But I'm just going to predict that he is a lifer with the Nashville Predators. Colton Sissons.
All right. I could see that. Yeah, like, I guess I would be surprised today if they traded both of them. Like, if McCarron and Sissons are both gone. Now, is that like can you recover from that if you do that? Yeah, I think you can next year. But I still think Trotz probably would love to have one of them around for next season and then just kind of shuffle your lineup after that. But yeah, like, I think one of those guys, there's a good chance they could get traded today. Like, O'Reilly, I don't see happening. Like, there were reports out there last night that New Jersey's interested in O'Reilly. And I don't know. I just think the offer for him would have to be astronomical for Barry Trotz to consider it. And is there a team that's willing to go like super high? Like yesterday we talked about, some people threw out the idea of a first round pick. Like, to me, it would have to be more than a first round pick for the Predators to move O'Reilly. It would probably be a first round pick and a prospect that they feel pretty good about, or a young NHL player that they feel pretty good about. Other than that, I don't know that Barry Trotz is going to consider it all that much, just based on the people that I've talked to.
Yeah, makes sense. But if you do get that, you get a first round pick and you get like a player or a high level prospect. Yeah, right. Right. You gotta
think about it.
Yeah, you gotta think about it. He's not getting any younger. Nobody is.
Right. In a perfect world, he's probably a second line guy now, right? He's probably your second line center. And I still think it's going to be really challenging for them to find somebody as soon as next season that's ready to supplant him as the number one guy. Like, let's say the draft falls their way and they end up getting one of these kids in Misa and Hagens. Like, are those guys ready to play first line minutes next year? I have my doubts about that. Probably ready to play in the NHL, but you're probably not ready to play first line minutes. So, like, I still think part of what's going to be interesting here, not only today, but as they move into the offseason, of does Barry Trotz have the ability to go get a legitimate guy who can play in a number one center role? And maybe you are taking a big risk on a guy when you do that. It's hard to imagine via trade you not taking a risk on a guy if they're available like that. But I still think ultimately that's probably what needs to happen, is for O'Reilly, as good as I think he still is, probably needs to downshift and be your second line center.
Right. And that, of course, Trotz from the day of signing put that out there as one of the things that he really likes about the signing, is that at some point that was going to happen. It's about time.
Yeah, we'll
But
see.
you got to have, got to have answers. Got to have other players.
Yep, some big moves being made in the Predators division. Brock Nelson gets traded from the Islanders to the Avalanche last night. Now, he's on an expiring contract, so we'll see what that looks like. He's also 33 years old. So is that a long-term answer for Colorado? I'm not sure, but I do think it's a really good player for Colorado in the short term that makes them as formidable as anybody in the Western Conference. And there's been a lot of chatter over the last 12 hours or so about Mikko Rantanen being traded from Carolina to Dallas. It kind of looks like that's falling apart at the moment. I guess they're trying to piece together a long-term contract with him, and based on some reporting from Darren Drager and Chris Johnson, that's not going very well at the moment. So Carolina may be forced to pivot. We'll see what happens on the Rantanen front, but some moves in the Predators division potentially that could impact the way things go moving forward here.
What do you think Rantanen, again, this is botched from the start by Carolina, but what do you think Rantanen wants to do? Did he just think that just being on the open market this summer is just going to give him more money?
I think that
you
maybe
could look at it that way.
Yeah, like I think that may be what he's thinking, and then you have all your options open to you. I can't necessarily blame him there. I mean, the other part of this is like, well, if you're going to do that, you better play well. And quite frankly, since he's come to Carolina, he really hadn't been all that great. Like, I worried about this with Jake Gensel, and I'm not saying this is happening with Rantanen. Like, sometimes there's some shock where you're traded and that affects you for a little while. But like, I remember when Gensel got traded last year and I was like, can he play away from Crosby? Turns out he can. He's pretty good away from Crosby. Can Rantanen play away from McKinnon? We'll find out. I think he probably can, but McKinnon's pretty darn good.
Yeah, no doubt. And that is a little bit of betting on yourself. Whereas right now you could, and again, you're talking about in either case, Carolina or Dallas, pretty good situation, right? I mean, like, you got good players around you. You got a chance to win. So I understand the idea of, the open market. You're going to get overpaid in the open market, but there is something to be said for having that security. I don't know. Does he want to? Is there actually a secret plan to just go back to Colorado? Is that
maybe maybe so? Joe Cam Ward in the building today for the Titans. So they had their 30 visit with Abdul Carter earlier this week. Cam Ward is in the building today. I think Shedeur Sanders, if I remember the Albert Breer piece correctly, is coming in on Sunday night, and then Travis Hunter later in the process here. But Cam Ward in the building today. Big day for the Titans over there.
Yeah. It's I mean, obviously, if you're doing this, you're serious. And that's why we've been talking all week about, Darnold and all the different things. And is it Ward if they don't do Darnold? Well, I mean, this should be an important piece of information. Yeah, none of this stuff beats out the film. But remember, those combine meetings are 15 minutes. They are capped at 15 minutes. This is an entire day. So you may have gotten into the film some with him, but you couldn't get into it much. It's more like, here, let's talk concepts. Now it's like you can get into every freaking pass he threw if you want last year. So it's possible that this visit, shifts the Titans one way or the other on the idea of drafting him.
We'll see what happens on that front. Hope everybody has a great weekend. We'll have you covered all day long on NHL trade deadline day here on 102.5 The Game. Chasing Big Joe is coming up next.